How is it that some people can make habits that last a lifetime? We've read Atomic Habits and maybe we've successfully implemented some routines, but the harder ones are still out of reach. We know the habits we want to create, but how can we do it? What would our lives look like if we could create habits that stick, bending instead of breaking? That is what this book is about. If you're new here, and you probably are because I only have 4 subscribers, I'm Wilson and I make videos about personal development through the lens of creating and breaking habits. That sounds interesting? Consider subscribing. Generally, I'm pretty good at making new routines. I've read over 100 books on this topic, but there is still one year over year that escapes me, and that's fitness. See, I've been going to the gym since sophomore year of college, and I basically look exactly the same. My problem? Consistency. Many of us start off on the right foot. We have a plan of attack. This is the year to get fit, the year of the 6-pack. But we hit a bump in the road, we're busy, and we miss a day in the gym. 1 turns into 2, and all feels like it's lost. Maybe we'll get to it eventually. We aren't the only ones with this problem. Strava, a popular app for tracking users' runs, did an analysis of more than 800 million user submissions and found that 80% of users give up their newfound routines on day 19. It's so prevalent, particularly for New Year's resolutions, that they named a day for it, Quitter's Day. I think I found the secret to be part of that 20% who push past day 19, and it comes from a book from a little-known author, Stephen Guise. He's written 2 books on the topic of behavior change, the first being Tiny Habits, and the second, Elastic Habits. The latter having a special place in my heart as it's my new favorite book on habits. It's funny, it's actionable, and I think it had the missing piece for creating my fitness routine. There are 4 key insights from this book that really stuck with me. First off, his personal experiment with doing nothing. Secondly, the greatest amplifier of trust. Third, the power of flexibility. And 4, putting it all together with tracking. The beginning of this book is fantastic. I just have to shout it out. When a new year rolled around, instead of setting New Year's resolutions that deep down he knew wouldn't last, he decided to intentionally fail. For the first month and a half of the year, he would do nothing. He would quit exercising, ditch his diet, eat, drink, gamble, basically follow whatever cravings he had. Now, luckily, he was self-employed as a writer and had reached a certain level of success where he could take the time to do an experiment like this. Basically, he would go into retirement, do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. Sounds like the dream, right? But halfway in, he was miserable. He'd gained 10 pounds of fat, he couldn't sleep because of tension headaches, and he realized this key lesson: doing nothing is the most stressful lifestyle. We all need to have goals that we're working towards, things that help us get out of bed in the morning and keep us busy. Even if we hate work and we're naturally lazy, like me, it's still an integral part of our lives. We're not meant to be dormant creatures. But if we are chronically lazy, we feel like we have big plans, but we still end up doing nothing. The problem is that we've conditioned ourselves to not trust our thoughts and our plans. This takes me to the second takeaway, the greatest amplifier of trust. We set New Year's resolutions every year, but year after year, we accomplish none of them. If we're lucky, maybe 1. So the next year when we set them, deep down, why would we believe that we're going to accomplish them? Is this year really different? Our own data set would say that the likelihood is pretty low. Deep down, we know that we'll fail. We have built a deeply rooted distrust in ourselves. How can we change that? It's actually easier than you think. See, trust is built and lost through consistency. Say you have a new significant other. On the first date, they're 5 minutes late. They have many excuses. Oh, the train, the traffic, the this, the that. Okay. But then on the second date, they're 10 minutes late. Now, when the third date rolls around, you come to expect them to be late. It doesn't matter what they say, deep down, based on the history that you've experienced, they won't come on time. Even if they do, there is still that built-in distrust. But the beautiful thing is, this trust is built and lost irrespective of the size of the task. We don't need to complete tasks like get a 6-pack, make $100,000, start a new business, etc. Sure, those things will build trust, but those are one-off events that happen very infrequently. We can build this much faster by leveraging the only thing that really matters: consistency. You can completely hack this by setting tiny goals on a daily basis. When these are completed, you will trust yourself a little bit more and a little bit more. Now for my fitness routine, instead of saying I'm gonna go to the gym 3 times a week, which gives me then 3 opportunities per week to either increase or decrease my level of trust, I instead set a smaller daily goal. Particularly for someone who's not in the groove of working out regularly, set the task for going for a walk around the block. It may not be going to the gym and having an all-out session, tearing apart your muscles, but it's still exercise. The small walk will move you a tiny bit closer to your goal, as the real goal is to be fit. Now, in conjunction with the next tip, this is extremely powerful, but we'll get to that in a little. When you take these small actions and then compound them over the course of a year, the results can be gigantic both physically and in the level of trust with yourself. The greatest amplifier of trust is how consistently you fulfill commitments, not how big they are. Now, a side note, you will miss a day. The first few gym sessions went great. You were too busy to go one day, then 1 turns into 2, and then you feel like you've lost all the progress, so you just quit. But from a neuroplasticity standpoint, you've still made a lot of progress. Your brain doesn't just forget the progress that you've made. Now, if you're in a 1-month-long challenge and you miss a day, just add a day. Make it 31 instead of 30. And if you're trying to quit something and you miss a day, guess what? You still have the entire rest of your life of not doing the thing ahead of you, so that one day doesn't make a difference. I love the 2-day rule that I first heard from Matt D'Avella, whereby you can miss 1 day, just make sure that it doesn't turn into 2 days in a row. 1 day won't derail your progress, but 2 in a row can seriously impact it, mostly because it might trigger that your goals that you're setting on a daily basis are too big. Which leads to the next takeaway from Elastic Habits, which I feel like is the most crucial thing in the book: showing up instead of showing off. I read at least 1 page every day last year. Does not sound as sexy as I read 113 books last year, but they're both true. Video coming soon about that. Generally, when planning, we tend to think about the best case scenario. We assume that we'll have the time, the energy, and that we'll be healthy. But if our goal is consistency to build that trust with ourselves, we need to add in flexibility. See, flexibility makes it so that there are multiple ways to accomplish our goal on a daily basis. We tend to set goals in a very rigid way, like how I used to set, you need to go to the gym 3 times a week. If you don't, you fail. But like I said earlier, if our goal is to get fit, there are many different ways to do it. So why keep it so rigid? For each one of our goals, Stephen Guise suggests that we add 2 ors, one of which being extremely small to the point where no matter what on any day we can accomplish it. For the case of exercising, this would be go to the gym or go for a walk, or the tiny goal, do a single push-up. Now this makes it so if I'm sick or I'm extremely busy and I cannot cut out the time to even go for a walk, all I have to do is a single push-up. Now, the likelihood that I continue going on and do more push-ups is pretty high, but if I stop at 1 single push-up, I have still completed my exercise goal for the day, and I'm increasing that trust with myself. Let's say your goal is to read more. You want to read a book a month, or let's say a page a day, like my goal, which sounds like a small goal, but there are some days where you just cannot be bothered to read. It's the last thing that you want to do. So instead of missing a day, you can resort to your ors. Read a page a day, or listen to an audiobook for a minute, or read an article online. See, our goal when we set out to read a book a month or a page a day is to learn, is to get smarter. And there are many different ways of doing that. It doesn't necessarily have to be reading a book. Now, if you find that even with these ors, you're still missing days, just tweak that third or to be even smaller and smaller and smaller. For the case of reading, you can push it down to just reading a sentence or reading a word, whatever gets you to just get in the habit of being consistent and doing it daily. That's all that matters. Now, the most effective strategy I've found for starting up new habits is by tracking it. And Elastic Habits has a very unique way of tracking. That is the mini, plus, and elite tracking. I actually started doing this long before I read this book, so when I read this strategy, I got a huge ego boost that I had already figured it out and cracked the code myself. But he fine-tunes it much further than I had taken it. Now we have our 3 different tiers of goals separated by our oars, but with normal habit tracking, we just put up a sheet of paper, a calendar, and then we're just putting an X on each day. And as Jerry Seinfeld coined, just don't break the chain. So once we have a chain of X's, our only goal is to keep it going for as long as possible. Now that would work if our daily goal was one static thing, but this doesn't work when there is a wild variability between your tasks. See, with the normal tracking, my all-out gym session for an hour looks exactly the same as doing one push-up, as they're both X's. See, now they're both equally important for maintaining my consistency, but one should be celebrated a lot more than the other. This is where this tracking method comes in. Now it's pretty simple. Basically, all you do is you have a different symbol for each level of your tasks. For your mini level, let's say for working out, your singular push-up, you set a certain symbol. For me, I use a slash. Stephen Guise recommends a triangle. Then the next way you can accomplish your habit, your second or, which is slightly harder, you add on to that symbol. I add a second slash. Mr. Guise recommends that you fill in the triangle. Then that final way, which is the hardest but the most optimal for moving towards your goal, you add another symbol which really makes it stand out. Now I like to scribble in the space, either being a whirlpool or some wavy lines. I want them to really stand out. Now Mr. Elastic Habits recommends that you fill in the square, that works too, but I like making it a little more artistic and fun. Now by using these 3 strategies, setting a tiny daily goal that lets me prioritize consistency, then adding in that flexibility where I'm basically guaranteed to accomplish my goal on a daily basis, and then using tracking to celebrate my wins while still keeping that daily consistency, I've been able to keep up the most rigorous workout routine basically of my life for the past 2 months, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. And finally, I am starting to see some results. So give these a try. If you don't track your habits, grab a piece of paper, hang it on your wall, and just start marking on a daily basis. It really is the easiest and the most effective way for building habits that stick. Now, if you're finding that you still don't have time to do everything you want to in a day, check out this video that I made on time management using my VARS strategy. I really hope that some of these tips help. Do subscribe if you like the content. Thanks for watching.